is probably the biggest. And we see that, fame and success is a burden as much as it is a blessing. Yeah, I think that would probably be, you know what I mean? Like, I think people think, oh, if only I was recognized for what I do. If I had a job and I could walk down the street and someone be like, you were great today at your job, then I'd be happy. But it's not, that's not the truth. It's, I don't think that makes someone happy.
So you don't like swapping cards?
That's my phone. Hold on a second.
No, she wasn't saying she didn't like it. She was talking about what misconceptions were.
Yeah.
And she was saying that fame or success,
there's a
money
misconception.
doesn't equate happiness.
Yeah, no.
Happiness equates happiness.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, guys.
Take care.
Hey besties, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Woo! Do I have some tea for you? Because I've been dying to understand what it was that was the catalyst for Taylor Swift to really question her friendship with Blake and what it was about this case that made Taylor take a step back and question whether or not Blake was telling the truth. Because I always had the sense, I always thought, well, maybe she told Blake something, or maybe Blake told her something, Maybe Blake confessed that something happened, or maybe Blake told her that something happened, or maybe Blake described her feelings to her about what was going on the set. And when I had a chance to sit down with someone who really has some insight into what they're dealing with this situation, someone in the PR world that is privy to details from both angles of Blake and of Taylor. And what I was told actually kind of blew my mind. And I guess I was overthinking it. I have a tendency sometimes to overthink things, but so why did it break down? What actually happened with the threats and where do they stand today? That's what I wanted to know. Okay. So here is what they said. I was told that Taylor and Blake's relationship was kind of growing more distant in like the last couple years because I mean she spent time with her at the Super Bowl, but Blake has 4 kids and Taylor was on tour, and so they didn't really have a whole lot of time to get together and see each other. And then Taylor, with her tour, she started dating Travis, and then when she had breaks in between tour, was spending most of her time with Travis and really didn't see Blake very much. And on the press tour for It Ends With Us, Blake consistently talked about how involved Taylor was with her throughout the process. She said that Taylor was with her every step of the way. Taylor helped her make decisions. Taylor provided insight. Taylor helped with casting. Taylor helped with music, helped with editing, fired a composer, all of these different things that she was saying. And that, she was so involved in it. And when you have a friend like that, she shows up for you. So in the middle of the press for It Ends With Us, Taylor was in Europe and she was on one of the last legs of the Eras tour. And so she wasn't privy to a lot of what was coming out with the press. And when she was not on, performing, she wasn't checking in like online to see what her friend Blake was doing. That's just like not how the world of celebrity works. And so she didn't really have any idea what was being said about her. She wasn't really paying a whole lot of attention. And she wasn't involved at all in the film, basically, is what they were saying. Like, she licensed her song and that was it. Honestly, she was asked to license her song. They entered into a licensing agreement and she was paid for the music. It wasn't a favor or anything like that. So I said, well, okay, so tell me about what happened with this penthouse situation. The way it was described to me is that Justin was already at the penthouse when Taylor showed up. And Taylor got a weird feeling because it felt kind of off because as soon as she got there, he was there. And so it kind of felt like she was being set up in a way. And that kind of gave her like an icky feeling because then, she's being encouraged to say stuff and she's meeting the boss, but she really didn't know anything about the film and she didn't know anything about the writing. She was just kind of put on the spot and was put into a situation by Blake that made her feel kind of uncomfortable. And so that was kind of one of the points in time during this process where she kind of had like a Blake is using me kind of feeling. So then when the movie came out and there was all this drama and she was getting backlash, she was initially super sympathetic to Blake. And if you remember, she actually held a birthday party for Blake at her house in Rhode Island at the end of August when she turned 37. And after that, I think they only saw each other one more time in October. But things were getting kind of icy between them because of just their lives going in different directions. But when the CRD complaint dropped, Taylor was initially supportive of Blake. But then Justin dropped his lawsuit. And so when he dropped his lawsuit, then she saw Blake in text message talking about her. And she read through all these different times that Blake used her name. And she saw how like her name was used and she was being called a dragon. That was obviously something she did not like. And she didn't want to be used as to help someone else get power or to be misrepresented in that way, I guess, because she didn't have any involvement in any of this. And then she's, learning about what happens in editing with the music and the composer and all of this other stuff. And she realized that Blake lied to them about her, lied to them about her, lied to them about what her involvement was, lied to them about, her demands, lied to her about being a dragon. And really, it was about using her for clout, using her to gain power, and using her in a way that if you're someone's real friend, you wouldn't need to use and throw someone's name around to remind someone, like, I know people, like not a lot of people want to be used as like a weapon to gain power. And so the way that it was described to me was that when Taylor saw the texts, and I know outlets have reported this, but it kind of clicked with me with the way that they said it, was that she felt exploited by that, but it was that Blake lied. And so when she saw that Blake lied and then exploited her name so that Blake could get power in this film, she realized that if she's lying to me and lying about me, she can't be trusted. Because if she's willing to lie about her best friend to gain power, what else was she willing to lie about? My source didn't know whether or not Taylor knew or didn't know about the sexual harassment, but she made her decision about why she didn't support Blake based upon Blake lying about her and based on Blake lying about her role in the film and based on the way that she weaponized her name to gain power and to hurt Baldoni. That's not something you should do if someone's your friend. Like, I'm not your weapon. So she was really upset, I was told, when she saw the text messages, like very upset. And of course, Blake is acting like behind the scenes that Justin's the one that is throwing a wedge into this and that Justin is the one that's causing this rift between them. But Justin wouldn't have placed Taylor in the position because Justin wasn't asking for Taylor to be hired and cast. He cast Blake, not Taylor, right? So it didn't really matter to him if Taylor was there or not. He didn't insert her into a situation. Blake brought her in willingly and used it to gain power. So how this was explained to me was that once Taylor saw the text messages, she realized that Blake was lying about her, which made her realize she can't trust Blake about anything because she could lie about anything else. And she didn't want to talk to Blake at all. Like, she was at that point pretty much done. And Blake was not taking no for an answer. And Taylor didn't want to communicate with her. Yeah. And so through the process, Taylor put up a big arm's length from her, didn't want to talk to her, was very hurt, had nothing to say to her at all, and wasn't interested. Hearing her point of view, didn't care. It was kind of one of those last straws when your friend has been using your name for a while. And see, that's what they had told me, was that Taylor had been told for a while that Blake was running around using her name. And when she's so busy, she didn't really have an opportunity to see what was being said, like I said. And so when she finally saw it for herself, that was like, okay, they're right about her. She's basically exploiting me and using me. She's not really my friend. So at that point, she decided to cut Blake off. And so Blake didn't want to take no for an answer. And that's why these conversations start happening between attorneys. And it was because Taylor wouldn't talk to Blake and Taylor wouldn't respond to phone calls. Taylor wouldn't respond to text. Taylor wouldn't respond to voice memos. And so then comes February and she doesn't talk to Blake still. And then Blake is running around acting like she was invited to the Super Bowl, but she never was. And she made it seem like through the press that she decided to stay home because of what was happening with Baldoni. And when that happened, Taylor's PR put out a story which basically said, no. Blake is not invited. It's not even that she's not coming. It's that she is not invited because they are not friends. And my source said not friends thing happened basically in December or the early January when Baldoni filed the suit and she saw everything with her own two eyes. She didn't believe Blake. So Blake's PR keeps trying to spin it, and she won't talk to her and she won't respond to her. And like, they basically said that everything that Leslie keeps putting out there about like, oh, they had a good cry and everything's great and they're working on things. My source said, no, absolutely not. They literally said to me, Taylor hates her. I think you saw an article on the Daily Mail where they said that Taylor wishes that she never met her. And that's truly it. I said, well, is there any possibility that Taylor could get lured back and do anything? And they said, nope. Blake could never say anything. Blake could never apologize. Blake could never grovel. Nothing will ever work. They're never going to be friends again. She will never trust her. She wants nothing to do with her. She's not interested. And I asked about what happened with the lawyers, like, did that really happen? And they said, yes. And I said, okay. So she wanted a statement put out to support her. And then she was going to put out text messages. And they said, basically, there was some sort of exchange between Gottlieb and Taylor's attorneys, and it's been reported Taylor took it as a threat and her attorney took it as a threat. And they said no, and they ended the conversation. And that happened in February. And when Blake was threatening her with the extortion stuff, that just further solidified to her that she couldn't trust Blake because she sees how Blake is talking about her. Then she can see in the press how Blake was using her. And now Blake is threatening her that if she doesn't do something, she's going to destroy her. And then it just sort of it clicked. She's trying to do to me what she did to Baldoni. And she thinks that this can work. And so I asked about the whole thing with the case and the subpoenas. And I wanted to know from my own ears, based on not on just the reporting, but like based on what they heard and they know. And they said it wasn't just the attorneys that handed stuff over or Scott Swift. Taylor gave Wayfair what they needed. And the basic agreement was as long as she gives them what they needed, as far as like the email that was sent to from Blake's attorney to her attorney about the threat and the releasing of the text messages and anything else that Taylor could provide. The agreement was that then they wouldn't depose her and that as long as she gave them that evidence, their needs would be satisfied. And so it wasn't like an agreement where she gave up, right? It was more, or they gave up. It's like they got what they needed, which was what was reported. And so I was asking them about why is Blake so hell-bent on making it seem like there's a possibility for reconciliation? And why does every time Taylor say something through a PR, why is it that she's not, Blake comes back and says, oh, we're still friends. We can work on it. And they don't know. But Taylor's apparently very tired of it. She doesn't want to be used that way. She doesn't want to be used in the sense of like her name being used like a weapon in this game between the two of them. And she doesn't like being tied to this at all because she had no involvement in it. And so a lot of the anger is also for Blake bringing her into something that she had nothing to do with and then lying about what she was involved in, using her as a weapon, lying about her involvement in the film, lying about her like ability to protect her and be a dragon. And then obviously the threats. Like when she threatened, they were not speaking and they don't speak and they won't speak. And apparently Blake is still trying to contact her and Taylor just will not respond. But for the longest time, I thought, is it really that simple? Is it really because I just figured Taylor would have known something. I just figured maybe Blake would have told her something. But sometimes all it is that when you see someone can lie about you, you know that they can lie about someone else. And I think when you're around this world, you know that PR is a game and a lot of what they do is a game and it's all about creating a narrative. And a lot of people are saying, well, Taylor knew stuff and she's just playing the victim. But there apparently is really an email where Blake threatened her. And there apparently really is this exchange that happened. And that's not a lie. And that because of that, she kind of is a victim. She's a victim in the same way that Baldoni is a victim. So I was pretty shocked. I thought it would have been something like, oh, Blake told her that nothing happened. And that's why she doesn't believe her. But it's really that Blake lied about her so she could lie about what else will she lie about. And that's why her friends don't want to deal with her. That's why Taylor's friends don't want to deal with her because now they see Blake for who she is and they see Ryan for who he is. They're just two people that use other people and will do whatever they can for themselves and at the expense of others. If Blake would have just been honest throughout the process and not name dropped Taylor and not used her like a weapon that way, and if this really did happen and Blake wasn't weaponizing Taylor this way, she probably would have believed Blake. But it was Blake's own actions, not Justin's. And I asked if Taylor blames Justin, and my source said no. They don't blame Justin. They're not like friends with Justin, but they also don't blame him and they understand why they got involved in it, but they know that it's not Justin's fault that they're involved. They know it's Blake's fault, and Taylor knows it's Blake's fault. And Blake has no one to blame but herself. Blake doesn't want to let go of Taylor because once she has to actually admit that Taylor wants nothing to do with her, her entire case falls apart because if your best friend doesn't believe you, what else do you have? And if if you mistreat your friend that way, and think of it this way, even if the extortion part didn't happen, would you feel good knowing that you had a friend running around Hollywood using your name to get access to roles and to opportunities and to getting brand deals or commercials or whatever, like influencing options or getting cast in roles? You knew your friend was using your name, this promise of like access to you as a way to get it based on that instead of based on their own talents. Like, how would you feel? Is that person really your friend or are they just using you? Taylor's not a perfect person, but I kind of understand now why she doesn't want anything to do with Blake. And I kind of understand now the way that my source told this to me about why it all went down. And I totally believe that they have what they need for this case when it comes to Taylor Swift. And Taylor is a key part of helping them prove lies, Blake's lies. If she lied about Taylor, what else did she lie about? And that's kind of why she is the smoking gun. But she couldn't just sit back and just let Blake use her name the way that she was using it. And so she gave them what they needed. And now she doesn't have to do a deposition and she doesn't have to provide anything else. She's out. And Blake, no matter how many times, my source said, basically, like, if you keep seeing articles about Blake and Taylor, just know all of them, if it says they're going to get back and they're going to become friends again, or they're just on a pause, it's all a lie. They said Taylor is done. She hates Blake. So what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, guys.